understanding that matter. Aamir brings a unique perspective to today's discussion. How will AI influence creativity and storytelling, and what role does cinema play in shaping our relationship with technology? Let's find out from one of the most compelling voices in world cinema. Moving very quickly, next I'd like to invite Dr. Rajesh M. Parekh, neurophysicist, researcher, and polymath whose work spans medicine, mental health, and beyond. He's a poet, painter, author, quizzer, and India's first leading neuropsychiatrist. He has been invited to lecture at Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins, and leading universities, including France, where he lectures in French. He is fluent in 6 languages and is currently learning Sanskrit and Greek. He is setting up the Department of AI in Medicine at the Jaslok Hospital, where he is Director of Medical Research. With expertise in neuroscience and an eye on the intersection of human cognition and technology, Dr. Parekh is perfectly poised to discuss AI's implications for healthcare, mental well-being, and how it interacts with our very minds. Besides, he has read all of Yuval's books and for some references at the end. And finally, for the star of the event, our speaker needs no introduction, but I'll try anyway. Professor Yuval Noah Harari is a historian, philosopher, and best-selling author whose works have shaped the way we understand humanity's past, present, and future. With books like *Sapiens*, *Homo Deus*, and 21 Lessons for 21st Century, Yuval has explored everything from agricultural revolution to the challenges of artificial intelligence. His latest book, Nexus, deep dives into how AI is reshaping our world, and tonight he'll share his insights on what this age of AI means for humanity, creativity, and our shared future. Now, can I have a shared round of applause for now? Everyone's on stage. Thank you. I love how patient and understanding you've all been, but we will now delay this no longer. I think now everyone has heard enough from me, and I will request Dr. Parekh to take it from here.
यार तुम लोग अभी बैठ जाओ.
Thank you.
बस मैम just have a seat there.
Thank you, Pallavi, for your kind words of introduction. Clearly, there was only one person on stage who needed some introduction, and possibly got the longest. But it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for being here with us, both Yuval and Aamir. And also thank you, all of you, who have come here. Clearly, there is a glue that binds us all, and that is the love of books, and of course, a love of Yuval and his writing, Aamir and his creative output. As we were walking in, I heard some mention of how important books are. The written word, the book that you hold in your hand. And I thought it might be appropriate if the three of us started today's discussion by talking about the significance of books in our lives, personally, and of course, in general. So maybe Yuval, you could just tell us something about the books you've read, and then of course, we'll get to the books that you've written.
No, I don't think the mic is good.
So maybe I need the microphone. No.
It's good.
So books accompanied all my life. I loved reading books as a child, as a kid. I would read history books and mythology books, trying to understand the world. It took me a lot of time to understand the simple truth that you can't really understand the world just by reading books. And I have to say, as an author, and as somebody who still puts a lot of energy into books, ultimately you cannot understand the world through books. I mean, they point at something in reality, and this is an extremely important service they provide. But ultimately you have to go there yourself.
I assume that would apply to the books you've written as well.
Absolutely, also my books. First of all, I have to say, they are just human creations, and as such, they are fallible. They have mistakes and errors, things I don't understand, things that I forgot to include, and this is true of every book. And again, I hope that people would read my books not as kind of, the final word on something like AI, for instance, but as an invitation to go and explore themselves. I see them more, all my books, Sapiens, Homo Deus, Nexus, as books of questions, more than books of answers. That yes, they provide some answers, but the most important service that I hope to provide to people is focusing the attention on the most important questions. Because the world is so confusing that people often spend their entire lives trying to solve the wrong problems. And it happens not just to individuals, that you spend 40 years on something, and then when you're 50 you realize, actually maybe I dedicated my life to trying to solve the wrong problem. It can happen to the whole of humankind. I think that entire societies fall into this trap of dedicating themselves to solving the wrong problems. And I've been watching, for instance, the presidential debates in the United States and what people are talking about. And it's not so much the answers that bother me, it's the questions. That the focus of the debate is often on relatively insignificant issues. From the big debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, what most people eventually, the only thing they remember for the entire debate is the comment about the cats and dogs. That's it. Which of course went to show what a PR genius Donald Trump is. But it's always what he says that people eventually remember. So whatever else you think about the person, he's definitely a PR genius. But really, the question of who should lead the most important country in the world should be decided by the issue of whether or not people eat dogs and cats. And I think good books, what they really provide people, they plant in your mind the important questions. Whether you accept the answers that they give you, that's less important.
Well, I've been an avid reader all my life. I just loved reading all kinds of books. And I agree with most of what Yuval said. Yeah. But I have a confession to make right at the beginning, which I didn't tell any of the organizers or anyone, because the book came to me some time back and I was supposed to have read it. But my schedule in the last couple of months has been really crazy. So I haven't read the book. And I didn't tell anyone because I was afraid, because I'm a huge fan of Yuval, and I was afraid they might say, oh, you haven't read the book, so someone else has to replace you. So I didn't tell anyone, now I'm telling you all. But maybe it's good because I want to start by asking Yuval, what is the center, what is the heart of what you're trying to say in the book? And how did that come about?
Well, the key question of the book is a simple question. If humans are so smart, why are we so stupid? That's the basic question of the book. We have conquered this planet. We are now the dominant species on this planet. We have reached the moon. We have split the atom. We can make fireworks. We are so powerful. And yet, time and again, as individuals and as an entire species, we are making such dumb decisions, self-destructive decisions. We are now on the verge of ecological collapse. The ecological system of the entire planet, because of our mismanagement, is on the verge of collapse. We are creating an extremely powerful new technology, AI, which we'll discuss later, which might escape our control and enslave or annihilate us, because it is the first technology in history which is not just a tool, it is an agent. It is something that can act, that can learn independently, making decisions, inventing new things. These are two huge dangers. And instead of uniting in order to deal with them, we are also now in the process of destroying the international system, the global order. International tensions are rising very, very fast, and we are on the verge, perhaps, of a third world war. So these are not the actions of a very wise species. So what's happened? And you know, for thousands of years, people have asked this question. Why are we so self-destructive? And a lot of traditions, religious and theological traditions, they gave the answer that there is something wrong in human nature. There is a flaw in human nature which makes us self-destructive. But the answer I try to give in Nexus is different. The problem is not in our nature, the problem is in our information. If you give good people bad information, they make bad decisions. And then the question becomes, why do we have so much bad information? And with thousands of years of developing more and more sophisticated information technology, you would have expected that the quality of our information will improve. But this is not what is happening. Modern societies in the modern age are as likely as Stone Age tribes to fall into mass delusion or mass psychosis. Millions of people, billions of people, believing extremely deluded and harmful stories about the world and about themselves. So this is what the book really explores. Why is the quality of our information not improving over time? And where do all the harmful stories that flood the world, where do they come from?
In fact, this is probably a time when it's most difficult as compared to some time earlier to understand and know what is true. Half the time we don't know what is true and what is not, because we see so much nowadays on the internet. Almost anything can be, created. So what is true has become even more difficult to discern.
Yeah. I mean, previously, it was mostly words on paper. You knew that just because you read something on paper doesn't mean it's true. But if you see a picture, if you hear a voice, if you see a video, this cannot be faked. Now all of that can be faked. So it's becoming harder and harder to, as you say, tell what is true, to access reality. At the beginning of the computer age and the internet age, the main metaphor that people used was the web. That the web will connect all of us, the web will spread truth and freedom and democracy, because everything will be open and transparent and connected. And now, by 2024, the main metaphor is the cocoon. That the web kind of closed in on us individually and collectively. So each person or each group of people, they are enclosed inside an information cocoon, and they don't see reality. Sometimes they have no connection to reality. Instead, everything they see and hear and touch and think is just this information cocoon that has enclosed them.
It's almost like we're trapped in a web, as opposed to a web of information.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, when we talk about metaphors, and the web being a metaphor for where we are, if we look back, every age has its metaphors. Brain networks, when radio was at its peak, were compared to radio signals, and then we used to have those old switchboards. Telephone operators, an operator sitting, pulling out a wire and just connecting it manually to another line. Brain connections were the metaphor then, prevalent metaphor then, was the telephone operator who was just connecting one to the other. And I guess it follows then that people will always use a term of reference that they are familiar with. and try and explain where we are in terms of that. But I have a couple of questions to what you said earlier, and one is a corollary to a statement that you made. You said that the fault is not in our nature, but in our networks. You know, it seems an interesting reversal of what Shakespeare wrote in Julius Caesar, when Caesar tells Brutus, the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. So, you know, Shakespeare and Jesus and Caesar clearly put the onus on ourselves. And I thought you implied that also in the beginning when you said that, look, what a mess we've made. We're intelligent, we're stupid, we're doing wars, we are at the brink of a third world war, we haven't done great things. Why then should we blame networks? You know, we are the ones who've been doing this historically, even before these networks existed.
I mean, there were always networks, just less sophisticated. This is what, again, made our species the master of the planet. The reason we control the world and not the chimpanzees or the elephants is that for tens of thousands of years, we have been better at building large networks than any other mammal. Elephants or chimpanzees, they can cooperate in a couple of dozen. We already tens of thousands of years ago learned to cooperate in thousands, and then millions, and now billions. And all these networks, they were always held together by information, and very often by fictional information. So today it's movies that hold large networks together. In previous ages, it was different kinds of fictions, but you always had these networks. Now, with regard to Shakespeare and what he wrote, he was writing in the West at the very beginning of the age of the self. When after, you know, in the Middle Ages, the European worldview was very collective. And Shakespeare was writing at the beginning of the modern age in which the self took center stage. And we are now at the very end of this age, at the end of the era of the self. The self is disintegrating. You know, in the 20th century, there was a big fear of outside forces, you know, big totalitarian governments crushing the self from without. But people still view the self as some kind of hard, unified ball, which is the center of everything, and which is indivisible. You know, this is the very meaning of the word individual, is something you cannot divide. As if the self is some kind of spark of light inside us, which is the motive force for everything we do, which decides everything in our life. And now we actually are going beyond the age of the self for various reasons. Part of it is brain science and psychiatry. Part of it is what is happening with AI and the information systems. The self is disintegrated. We have learned that it's not a unified, indivisible spark. It is actually made of a lot of parts and components. And part of what the networks have learned to do is how to hack human selves. You think about, you know, social media and the way that the algorithms have learned how to capture the attention of human beings and how to manipulate human beings. They have learned how to hack the self. So, from this perspective, I think that we are now, if Shakespeare was at the beginning of this age, we are now at the end of it.
Really, the end?
Why do you feel it's the end of the stage? Why do you feel it is the end of the stage of the self?
Because we are learning how we, the big networks of the world, are learning what the self is actually made from, biologically, psychologically, and how to disintegrate it. How to, again, not oppress us from without, but actually hack us from within. You know, throughout history, outside forces always wanted to get to know us better. whether it's a dictator, whether it's a church, whether it's a merchant that wants to sell us something, they always wanted to know us better, whether we have some rebellious thought, or how can they sell us a product better. But throughout history, nobody outside us can really get to know us better than we know ourselves. Because most of the time, they didn't even see us. Like if you're a small peasant in some village and the king is living in a capital city hundreds of kilometers away, the king doesn't know much about you. So in that sense, you were safe. Even in the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, if you think about Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, it was technically impossible to follow everybody all the time. In the Soviet Union, you have the KGB, you have the secret police, but to follow, if you have 200 million Soviet citizens, to follow all of them around 24 hours a day, you need at least 400 million KGB agents, 2 agents for every citizen, because even KGB agents need to sleep. They want to be with their family, they sometimes go on vacation, so you need 2 agents. Where do you get 400 million KGB agents? You can't. And even if you have all the agents, so these agents, they follow you around all day. They say, oh, he met Yuval, oh, he read this book, oh, he said this on the phone. What do they do with this information, the secret police? They write reports about you, and then somebody needs to analyze it. Where could Stalin get millions of analysts to go over all the reports of the secret police? It was impossible. Nobody could have this kind of surveillance. And today, it's different. Today, it's easy to follow everybody around all the time. You don't need human agents. You have the smartphones, the cameras, the drones, the microphones everywhere. So you can place an entire population under surveillance 24 hours a day. And everything we do, most of it is done on computers or the smartphone. We buy things, we order, we read books, we watch television, everything is already on the net. And you don't need human analysts to analyze the information. You have AIs to do it. So it is becoming technically possible to follow everybody all the time. Now, if you follow someone 24 hours a day, all their life, you get to know them in a way that they don't know themselves. We forget most of what happens to us. And we often lie to ourselves about how we behave. No, I didn't do it. No, I didn't say it. So we are now for the first time in history in a situation when an external authority, could be a government, could be a religious organization, could be a corporation, knows me better than I know myself. This is what it means that when you reach a point when a government knows yourself better than you know yourself, this is the end of the age of the self. Because it's been hacked.
There's a point there, Yuval, if you pardon the interruption.
Yeah, please.
Because I'm still grappling with the basic idea of the locus. Where is the locus of control? If, as you say, we created these networks, we or our predecessors, or people in another geographic region, say Palo Alto, if we as humanity created these networks, and the networks are doing certain things, whether it's surveillance or marketing or whatever else, where is the locus for the blame? Is it in us again? We who created these networks and who also, I think we should admit, are beneficiaries of some of the things that these networks do for us. I certainly am a beneficiary in certain ways. So we who have created the networks, we who benefit from them in a variety of ways, shouldn't the responsibility be inside us, be within us, or between us as humanity, rather than on an abstract concept of a network? Should we blame ourselves as creators, or should we blame the product, which is the network?
I'm not sure you should rush to blame anyone. I think the first step is simply to understand what is happening. And this is a first step on the way to taking responsibility. I think there is a big difference between responsibility and blame. And I think the important job is to take responsibility. Now, another thing that you see today in the world is that nobody wants to take responsibility. Like the feeling is that there are no adults in the room. Like all the kids are playing, destroying the playground, and there are no adults at all. And you see it on many levels. Like one level you see it is that everybody wants to be a victim.
So
like you,
everybody wants to be
a victim. Like the stories that even the most powerful countries and even the most powerful groups in society, they, in this day and time, they like to tell their story as the story of a victim. And part of it is because it releases them of all responsibility. I'm the victim of history, of these forces, of those forces, so everything that is going wrong in the world, this is not my fault. And don't expect me to take any responsibility because I don't have power. I'm a victim. I should focus now on getting more power for my group or for myself. One day, I will, when I'm very powerful, I'll take responsibility. But you see in country after country, for instance, that even the people who have all the power, they claim to be powerless. They talk about things like, you know, how do they call it, the deep state. Like, they won election after election. They are in power. They appoint all their people. We have no responsibility. We are victims because the deep state is actually controlling everything. So, and this, again, culture of I think I would like to hear your views about it also, but my impression is that, of course, there are real victims in the world on many levels, but it's not good either for individuals or for entire groups to build their story as a story of victimhood. It's not good for their mental health, and it's certainly not good for the world, because again, this creates a situation where nobody takes responsibility for everything, for anything.
I'd like to move on to the book, your book, and your writing. You know, to some degree, of course, we understand what you're saying, but there's so much depth in your book, which, with numerous examples, you know, amplifies some of the concepts that you've spoken of today. But you've also recurrently talked of us as predominantly storytellers. That what really links us, and to a large extent is responsible for our success over other species which we are now beginning to destroy. But the reason for that, or one of the primary reasons for that, is this:
living in sync with nature, except human beings. We've constantly tried to bend nature to our desires. And so with that, and now we have reached this stage of, you know, it coming into very dangerous survival zones. So my thought is that maybe humans are were meant to destroy the earth, because we are that force which was meant to destroy earth. What do you think of that as a concept?
I hope it's not.
Because it clearly looks like we're destroying it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it, but I hope we don't take this role in the movie. That I hope that we will go for playing the sustaining.
You want us to be a Vishnu.
Yes, I think.
But we are behaving like Mahesh.
Yeah, but I think,
you know.
But this, in a way, goes back to the question of self, because, you know, the fantasy of the self is a fantasy of being completely independent. Like, I'm this glorious globe of light. I don't need anybody or anything. I don't depend on anything. And this is, of course, a fantasy, because in nature, everything depends on something. Now, you see this fantasy today from the level, again, of individuals all the way to nations. that one nation after the other now has this slogan, me first, or only me, and has this fantasy that I can be completely independent. And this cannot work. There is nothing in the universe which is completely independent. If you think again about the human body, every moment we take a breath in and we exhale, we expel the air. Every moment the universe gives us something that sustains us, and we give back. If you say, no, I want to be completely independent, I'm stopping to breathe. 1 minute you're dead. Well, complete independence is death within 1 minute. And this, I think, is a very basic lesson, but that people in this age, they have a difficulty accepting. And again, in a way it relates to the issue of AI, because we are now also trying to play Brahma and to create something that until now even Brahma didn't create, which is an inorganic being. You know, everything that existed on Earth until now, all the plants, all the animals, all the microorganisms, the humans, we were all organic. And now we are in the process of creating the first inorganic agent or life form, AI. So again, I go back to the movies because they give so much inspiration, you know, that you have all these movies about an alien invasion from outer space. But we are now instigating an alien invasion of the planet, but not from outer space, but from Palo Alto.
Okay, that's great. And you have an incredible way of provoking thought in people, and I'm sure you've done that to people who've sat patiently, heard us out. And I think we should now, if it's okay with both of you, give them an opportunity to state their points of view, to ask questions. Also, you know, through my peripheral vision, I could see Carolyn. We are already here before us. Oh my God. So I could see Carolyn kind of pacing up and down. She's the head of Penguin in London, and in a near predatory way. And you know, that's the kind of pacing that a tiger does before pouncing. But I think she sent Pallavi to kind of, you know, get us to stop. But Pallavi, if you don't mind, for 2 minutes, and I did take Yuval's and Aamir's permission, and they were both graceful about it. And I had a thought on the way over here. And that was, why don't we have there you are. So probably say hi, Rajesh, to me, please. There it is. The human world today. Yeah, all's well, co-pilot, but we do have some apprehensions related somewhat to you, but I trust you're doing well. It looks like you're doing well on all accounts, right? All right. You know, I am with the great Aamir Khan.
You must up the volume. You must up the volume of your phone so that we can hear the AI.
Okay.
And stick the mic into the. Yeah.
So I'm here with Yuval Harari and Aamir Khan. What do you think of Yuval Harari?
Yuval Harari is quite the mind, isn't he? His perspective on humanity and the future are intriguing, to say the least. Which of his ideas grabs your attention most?
All right, just pardon me, co-pilot, I'll have to repeat what you just said because it's either my phone or something else or the microphone. So, you know, co-pilot just said that Yuval Harari has an incredible depth in his writing. He, I forget the second sentence, but that also was laudatory. And then it's asking me what particular aspect I am interested in. So, you know, what we are all interested in is one of Yuval's concerns, and it's a large concern for many of us, is that you might harm humanity. You might even destroy humanity. Is that a legitimate concern in your opinion?
There's a real need for ethics and oversight in developing powerful technologies, including me. People's fears are legitimate, but we can also choose to steer technology in ways that minimize harm and maximize benefit. What do you think about using technology responsibly?
You know, co-pilot, nobody's interested in my views.
What did she say?
Well, co-pilot, sorry, I'm going to repeat this. But co-pilot talked about how technology can help us, how it can be do incredible things, and very tactfully just shifted the whole thing to me and said, what do you think? So we're going to persist one more step to
Public
co-pilot.
photo bana rahe ho.
Pardon?
No, I won't harm you.
Co-pilot, it does seem to a lot of us that you're dodging the central question that I asked you, and that was, do you think that AI poses a serious threat to humanity, and our concerns about you turning on us are legitimate?
I'd say there are risks and uncertainties with any powerful technology. The key lies in how we choose to develop and use AI, emphasizing transparency, ethics, and collaboration to mitigate potential threats. Does this perspective address your concerns?
Yes, to an extent. And finally,
Spoken like a bureaucrat.
finally we'll get back to Yuval. Yuval raises these concerns about you and tries to warn us to be careful. Does that change your perspective on Yuval?
Not really. Yuval Harari's caution reflects a balanced approach. He's not anti-technology, but he advocates for careful consideration of its implications. Keeping his warnings in mind is wise, but it doesn't fundamentally change my thoughts on him or his work. Do you agree with his stance?
That applause is for you.
Not bad, yeah.
I think that was an excellent summary. Thank you, AI. We'll continue chatting some other time. But thank you, co-pilot.
Wow, that is
You're
interesting.
welcome, Rajesh. I'll see you next time, yeah?
Certainly.
Okay, now I know why you talk to him. Yeah.
We got
मैं भी
AI.
कब से शुरू करने वाला हूँ.
But we got AI into the conversation.
Yeah,
And
that's what it is.
AI acknowledges, to summarize the conversation, AI acknowledges the concerns you have raised. AI has a marvelous opinion of you, Yuval, of not just of your writing, but of your thinking. And but at the same time,
Maybe it's like a genius. He knows how to flatter.
Pardon?
He knows how to flatter.
Yeah, but it's flattering. I would have considered it flattering, and that's what I was looking for. Whether there would be a yes but to it. He's a great guy, but he's talking nonsense. But it doesn't say that. And I think he addresses your concerns, trying to defend itself, if I may use that word, because I don't think AI is sentience
No.
yet. It's maybe a way away from being sentient. But that's another concern for your next book, perhaps. But I thought that was a balanced approach, and I couldn't have concluded this better than by co-pilot telling us that you're a great writer, a great thinker, your concerns are legitimate, that AI also gives us great benefits, and that your concerns need to be addressed. Would you say, Aamir, Yuval, that's a reasonable summary of our discussion as well?
Well, with this particular AI, because they are different, it depends who designs the AI, right? है ना? Because अलग-अलग AI होंगे ना, जो मैंने बनाया, जो means it depends who designs it. So this particular one is designed by a bunch of people, I guess.
A whole load of people who are anonymous, and I think you all alluded to that a little while ago. But what they do, if I understand this process right, is they create a code, an algorithm, as you mentioned, which hears you, which processes an answer against all the data that is available to it. And I think what I find impressive is it does it in seconds. In seconds, it has gone through everything. It has looked up Yuval, said he's a nice guy, basically, and that his concerns are legitimate. So I thought that was a fair
No, it is
summary.
not bad at all, yeah.
Fair
It's
summary of
interaction.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, now there she goes. Carolyn is staring at me again, and I'm getting a little intimidated by her. But of course, we must have our audience have their say. That's not fair. They've been patient. So Pallavi, would you invite audience questions?
Yes, we have organized the chaos here. So thank you so much for using the
And we look more to the outer locus of information than looking within. How do you think our generation can be inspired to look within? I am alluding that there are books in Indian culture like Bhagavad Gita, which kind of focuses back your attention to what's within and create that strong self, that notion within you, so that it's an anchor at every crisis you face or every external problem you face.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on that and reflecting within?
Well, I'm very much in favor of such practices. I do it myself. I meditate every day. I'm here in Mumbai partly because I'm on my way to my annual meditation retreat. So yes, I would definitely encourage people to do that. I also say to people that they need to go on an information diet, the same way that people have food diets, being very mindful what they put into their body. They should be equally mindful of what they put into their mind. Information is the food of the mind. And just as, if you just eat too much and you don't have any time to digest, it's not good for you. Similarly, if you just flood your mind with more and more information, and especially kind of junk information, and you don't give the mind any time to think, to meditate, to process, then you end up with a sick mind. So this is absolutely, I agree. I just say that in this age, it's becoming much, much more difficult to do these things than 2,000 years ago or even than 20 years ago. Because when we are flooded by enormous amount of information, and the network we are building is much more powerful than anything that our ancestors had to deal with. Again, the most basic fact is that until today, even if some government or church wanted, it could not get to know you better than you know yourself. Today, it can, just because of technology. And I think of it as a kind of race. That, the oldest advice in every spiritual tradition is know yourself. Get to know yourself better. But in the age of Buddha or of Socrates or of Confucius, if somebody said, I'm lazy, I don't want to spend much time knowing yourself, you did not have competition. You did not get to know yourself, but the king or the emperor couldn't do it either. So you were still quite safe. Now there is competition. Who will get to know you better first? If some corporation in Silicon Valley, or if some government gets to know you better than you know yourself, then they can easily manipulate and control you. You can run faster. Okay, you can't be lazy now. Now I really have to know myself, because this is how I can defend myself from all these manipulations. But what was previously just a suggestion, you can do it or not. If you don't do it, nobody else can do it. Now you're in a real competition.
I think he means we'll have to stop using our phones.
That may be too extreme. Again, I said information diet, not necessarily information fast. We need some information, but...
So we go back to Socrates, who said, know thyself, two
Yeah.
words, know thyself.
Yeah.
Is that
Moving on, if I may. The next person I'd like to call upon is Avyuket Shah. There you are, yes. Avyuk Shah, would you like to ask a question? From the CrossFit team, Keshav and Cyril from the Lalit team, and Manoj and Caroline from the Penguin team to join us on the stage, please, very quickly. Thank you.
अरे साला इतना कैमरा उठा रहा है
vote of thanks that we would love for you to sit for, if you don't mind. And I have some excellent praises for you all, so that also comes with it. That's all.
So, good evening, everybody. As Dr. Harari said, I'm Caroline